Funding for this broadcast was provided by the law firm of Schlanger, Mills, Mayer, and Silver.
An icon of television, Norman Lear has brought his distinctive vision to politics.
In November 2004, if we are successful, the country's going to look around 2 days after Election Day and see that maybe 2.5–3% more people voted than ever voted before.
Join me as I talk with Norman Lear about inspiring and energizing all Americans about our basic freedom, the Declaration of Independence. I'm Dr. Gail Gross. Welcome. Norman Lear has had a distinguished career as a producer, director, comedy writer, screenwriter, political and social activist, and humanitarian. He has created many popular television shows, including All in the Family, The Jeffersons, and Maude. Motion picture credits include Fried Green Tomatoes, The Princess Bride, Divorce American Style, and Stand By Me. Mr. Lear has received numerous honors for his creative work, among them the National Medal of Arts Award, 4 Emmys, the Writers Guild of America, a Peabody, and was one of 7 television pioneers inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame. As the founder of People for the American Way, Norman Lear has emerged as one of the nation's leading defenders of constitutional rights and liberties. His latest project is the Declaration of Independence road trip. That is what we are going to talk about today. I am so glad you could join us. Welcome, Norman. Thank you for joining us.
You couldn't be more welcome.
I want you to tell me about the Declaration of Independence Roadshow.
Well, the Declaration of Independence is our nation's birth certificate. And when I first saw it, and it was available, it was about to be auctioned off by Sotheby's on the internet. First time anything like that had ever been auctioned on the internet. And the minute I saw it and cried, I thought, people's document, never going to sit on a wall, never going to be in a vault. It's going to travel. It's going to go to little towns, big towns. It's going to high schools, colleges, military bases, state fairs. It's always going to be in motion, and it's going to get to every city in the country. Within 2 days of saying, first of all, we got it, and within a couple of days, the phone was ringing off the hook. Every presidential library, the Winter Olympics, the Super Bowl, everybody seemed to, the United World Wrestling Federation, everybody wanted the Declaration.
It's amazing. Tell us the story about how this even became part of the scene, that this Declaration of Independence is in motion for people to buy.
Well, you remember, I think, most people seem to remember that 12, 14 years ago, they'd read that a fellow picks up a picture frame that he likes in a flea market, buys it for $7 just for the frame, doesn't care for what's in it. Takes it home, and this was a small antiques dealer in Pennsylvania. Sells it to a fellow for $37. By the way, this man who made this transaction is still around. He sounds like he could be 117. I've talked to him several times. And he'd love to tell his story. Somebody should talk to him. He sells it for $37, and he tells the man who buys the frame that he threw a little pinhole in the back. You can see that it says, and I don't remember now whether it was he saw 1776 or he saw July 4, I don't know what, but he pointed it out to the guy. And he said as the man left, having paid $37, if it ever turns out to be anything, you'll remember me? And the guy said, oh yeah, of course. Fellow takes it home and he takes the back off and he finds this document, which he can't believe is real, and it takes him about a year to finally get somebody says to him, you must have this looked at. So he goes to the archivist to have it checked out. It turns out to be an original copy of the Declaration of Independence, and he sells it some years later for $2 million.
And you bought it for $8 million.
That's what it ran up to.
Oh my, from $7 to $8 million. Can you, it's like the flea market success story. Can you imagine?
But, you know, you can't put a price on that document. This was the document that was printed the night of July 4th, 1776. It was immediately given to people on horseback, dispatched to the 13 colonies, read aloud in town halls, and because it was also an announcement of a revolution.
Yes.
So it was, but this is one of 25 that are known to exist in the world. Several of them are out of the country, and all the rest of them are, you know, one is at Harvard, and I've talked to any number of people who went to Harvard who never knew there was a copy of the Declaration of Independence there.
And this was John Dunlap that printed it up.
The name of the printer was John Dunlap.
And they were called the Broadside.
The Dunlap
Broadside.
The broadsides are the size of it, like
and
the
it was
size of a newspaper.
One page.
One page.
And then
one signature on it, John Hancock. That's where the expression "You're John Hancock" came from.
Isn't it?
And then it took 6 weeks. They started to sign it, the rest of the signers, 6 weeks later, and it took several months for them to sign because it had to travel around the 13 colonies to pick up those signatures.
And it was such an emotional thing that even George Washington in New York read it to his troops and got them to knock down a bronze statue of King George, I understand.
Well, you know, a book has been written that proves that Jefferson wrote it to be read aloud.
Yes.
And more than read aloud, to be performed. And we got the clue from reading that. And this is before, in July 4th, before 9/11, I made a few phone calls. And we had, in Philadelphia, Tom Ridge, our security person now, was governor of Pennsylvania, and he got us into Independence Hall at 8 o'clock at night when it closed, till 5 o'clock in the morning. Mel Gibson, Michael Douglas, Kevin Spacey, Kathy Bates, Whoopi Goldberg, Morgan Freeman, Renee Zellweger, Winona Ryder. If I left out anybody, I'll get killed. Edward Norton. And 12 did a reading of the Declaration of Independence that was breathtaking. Photographed by Conrad Hall, Academy-winning cinematographer, and scored eventually by John Williams. And it's
magnificent.
It's gorgeous.
And really the way it was intended. You've really restored the whole process to the way it was. That's amazing.
The amazing thing to me at the time was people were so ready. One telephone call, by the way, to Nashville, to the DreamWorks group in Nashville, and 8 days later I was in Nashville with the Declaration, with 60-some major country western people on a soundstage, giving us a We Are the World type singing of America the Beautiful. It's gorgeous. And these two things happened before 9/11 because people, there was a need to connect with the values of that document, upon which every other document rests, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution.
Yes, and the idea that all men are created equal, the idea that we're endowed by our Creator to have certain rights, that's once again entering the forefront of our culture and cultures all around the world since 9/11. We're looking at our own personal liberties here and in other countries, and we've seen the outgrowth of such tragedy in the 9/11 situation. And so what do you see as the particular symbology of the Declaration of Independence today in all of those formats?
As I mentioned, it is our country's birth certificate. It states the basic values upon which the Constitution was drawn. And let me answer the question by stating what the goal of this is.
Yes.
In November 2004, if we are successful, and my bet is that we will be, if we are successful, the country's going to look around 2 days after Election Day and see that maybe 2.5%, 3% more people voted than ever voted before. And when they start to think and investigate what the hell kicked up that participation, there will be Wrap the Vote and Rock the Vote and a number of other wonderful efforts, and then there will be this Declaration of Independence effort. And I'll explain how we hope to do this, and we'll see that this effort has succeeded in getting more people to vote. Because that's, and by getting more people to vote, more people to understand not just the responsibilities and the obligations, which we always hear about citizenship, which kind of has a heavy weighted sound, but the opportunity of citizenship to make this country whatever you wish it to be, to change whatever you wish to be in your community, in your city, in your state, in your nation. That, which, if I often think if you had the figures, the names and the stats of every person who ever walked the face of the globe, since the beginning of the human of the species, and you tried to figure what percentage had the opportunity we have in this United States, and you couldn't get your fingers close enough to measure how tiny that percentage is. So get people to understand that, and get kids. I always think the doorway to everybody is through young people. To get kids to understand that, to get kids to get that understanding of the opportunity and make sure. Kids came home and said, "Dad, Mom, you have to stop smoking." Kids came home and said, "We got to recycle. There are problems in the environment." Kids carried the messages. And kids will carry the messages. I want my indigent father, my lazy uncle, my indifferent aunt. I'm going to get you the guys to the polls. That's
so interesting. I always say children change the world. In the 60s, we marched on in Alabama, and then you had civil rights, and you had all kinds of housing changes and political changes, and it was really Vietnam. It was really the teenagers that really made those protests, and hopefully as many times peacefully. And then through those protests, there was really change in our government. So we know the process works, and it can be done. And you're really educating.
For a positive reason.
Yes, educating.
Not we don't like this, but we
love it.
Now understand it, and we want it.
Yes, and its potential and what it was meant to be. We have such a blueprint in the Declaration of Independence for democracy, and very few countries had a blueprint for that. Do you see our Declaration of Independence now being remodeled, in a sense, around the world? Do you see this going around the world and changing attitudes?
It inspired the French Revolution.
Yes.
It inspired Tiananmen Square. It inspired Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation.
It's so true. And it's so unique to our country that, with all of our issues and problems, we have this wonderful opportunity here that really doesn't exist, I don't believe, anywhere. That you're educating kids. That's become such a big possibility now in education, the idea that we could teach civics again, citizenship again, all being inspired by this Declaration of Independence. So already there's been a tremendous revival of attention and information.
I thought, as you said, that no other country has, and while that is quite true, one of the things I always, and I hope this is a message we'll be able to get across, I think about a great deal, is when people talk about America as God's country, there's a little blurring of lines there. I think God's country are the Purple Mountains majesties, are all the things we think about. But that's also God's planet, all of God's countries. The God's country we think about when we say God's country wants to be what men and women gave us. There weren't any women involved in the Declaration of Independence, but there was an Abigail Adams, for one, who made sure that John Adams was on his toes. Men, the human of the species gave us the Declaration. God gave us the heart, the mind, the soul to deliver it, but man gave it. So this is not God's Declaration of Independence, God's Bill of Rights. This is ours. He just gave us the tools with which to. So there's a certain kind of the wrong kind of nationalism when we use God's country loosely, as if we are God's chosen and so forth, when all of us across the globe are God's chosen.
I guess what you're saying is it really is we the people, and therefore we are the government, and we have the opportunity to make changes, and the key to it is following the process to vote and make our positions clear and gather in other people around us who will be willing to take a stand as you are. And that brings me to something so dramatic about your character, because you're such a statesman, really, that you have philosophically lived your life and in a way that is reflected by your work. I don't know anybody else who did that except, as I told you earlier, Jonathan Swift in his Gulliver's Travels, where he used satire.
You don't have to be Jonathan Swift or someone like me who established a reputation in media. I have lots of friends and in many walks of life who do every bit as much. I use this, you can't get your fingers close enough.
Yes.
I've said to a number of friends, who you say to somebody, well, write your congressman if you're upset about that. Well, I write my congressman, my sister says. I'm Claire Lear, I'm not Norman Lear. So I said, well, Claire, you understand the size of this universe, this being one of a billion universes, one of a billion planets in a billion universes, and you want to measure the distance between your effectiveness and mine? Can you get your fingers close enough? And that's the truth. There are people everywhere that are doing exactly the same thing in their own lives, and it matters, I think, every bit as much. Every bit as much.
Well, the early signers of the Declaration of Independence had to be so courageous. They put their lives on the line, their families on the line. And in a sense, in the media business, you put yourself on the line, too, always staying steady in your philosophy.
I love those words. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and these words kill me, their sacred honor.
Right.
And we don't hear enough about sacred honor in our culture, that kind of thing. You have to go to The Godfather.
Yes, it's so
to look
true.
for people who are living sacred honor in the wrong way.
It's so true.
But we want to hear more about that kind of
statesmanship, really. There's in times of duress, we always say, where is the statesman that will stand up and stand in their integrity? Mm-hmm. But as I read over all the things that you've done, over and over again, you have really walked your talk. It couldn't have been easy. I mean, to buy the Declaration of Independence for $8 million cannot be easy no matter what. What drives you?
The fact is it has been easy.
Yes.
I don't know where it came from. I'm not sure it was there always, but at some point I understood. I say it in a piece of philosophy. I think it may be my favorite piece of philosophy, and it might be Talmudic. I don't know. It sounds like it's Talmudic, but a man should have a garment with two pockets. In the first pocket should be a piece of paper on which is written, "I am but dust and ashes." In the second pocket, a piece of paper on which is written, "For me the world was created."
Yeah.
So, to live between that yin and yang, to understand that we are all of us that proverbial grain of sand on the beach in the great scheme of the Creator's enterprise here. But how can you open your eyes in the morning and not know it's there for you?
I recognize that you really have a certain courage that, to me, makes it so understandable how you would buy the Declaration of Independence. In a sense, you remind me of those early men that signed it and were willing to walk that philosophy with their life, to merge their philosophy?
Not because I look that old.
No, you look so young. You look so young. What was the defining moment in your life, do you think?
Oh, this is going to sound, if anybody is a diabetic, they shouldn't hear these words. It's too treacly. But, you know, I think every moment is a defining moment. Mm-hmm. I think I was driving my kids. I've got little kids and big
Six in all.
Six in all.
And a beautiful and wonderful wife.
Yes,
Lynn.
indeed. And from whom anything you find spiritual in my nature flows from my relationship with Lynn Lear. But I was taking them to school this morning. It was the last. My son is 14. The girls, twins, are 7.5. And I stopped at one point and I said, "You remember? We had talked about this last night, so they expected this. When I took them to school the first day of the year of this season, I said, I'm going to stop right here on the last day I'm taking you to school when school is over, and you will see how fast it went." Mm-hmm. So I said last night, I'm going to, and the three of them remembered, and I stopped at that place. And then we talked about the rest of the way. What is important about that? And what's important about that is time goes fast, and the only lesson is you got to live in the moment.
Yes.
You've got to make sure every day matters and every moment within it.
I think that's what this Declaration of Independence Roadshow is bringing forward. The idea that we're looking once again at that which is part of our history that we've sort of not paid attention to in a long time.
Right. Can I tell you a couple of other things that are happening with the road trip?
Please tell us.
I'm working today. We'll be finished with it over the weekend. The Scholastic magazine,
Yes.
to 9.5 million kids and 111,000 teachers, is doing a curriculum, a magazine, 3 major pieces. It'll go out in October and will be used through the school year. The following October, and we will be building this until that moment, we will be engaged in a national middle school, high school debate contest.
Wonderful.
So we will look for the city championships, the county, the state, the regional, and the national debate champions, all on the Declaration, the meaning of life, liberty, pursuit, and happiness, on those subjects.
Wonderful.
And we will find the high school and middle school winners.
And I want to stress this is bipartisan, nonprofit.
Presidents Ford and Carter are co-chairs. Lady Bird and Nancy Reagan are the chairs of the executive committee. Tom Ridge, as I mentioned, got us into Independence Hall. It's everybody knows. Less than 50% of everybody voting is not what our founders intended. No. Democracy works with an informed citizenry and involved citizenry. And so we want to inform them more about these values and get them to the polls to know that they matter.
Yes. When you consider democracy as such a gift, really, and that in so many very important elections, as you say, 50% of the population is voting, we really know we have a problem. It's just amazing what you're doing, and it's amazing the way it's circulating out and out and out and expanding into all of these arenas of education.
Did you know that the Home Depot has, a few weeks ago, has come aboard as our major corporate sponsor?
I just was amazed.
The United States Postal Service is supplying the 18-wheelers, the 10-wheelers, the trucks, everything we need to transport around the country. Wow. They're going to do posters in every post office, wanted voters.
This is so exciting.
They are providing all the security it requires. They are providing fulfillment, which is to say the caps and the T-shirts and the things we'll be selling. They'll be fulfilling those orders, and Amazing. It's an extraordinary partnership.
Amazing. It's amazing what you've been able to do that really, in a sense, it feels like a new birth, like a rebirth, bringing the Declaration of Independence, the people's document, back to the people, making them think about it again at a time when we really need to remember those ideals and values, and then telling us that we have a vehicle for change. We can vote. We should vote, and educating everybody to vote. I thank you so much for being my guest
well,
today.
I thank you so much for being so interested.
This is so exciting to me that as an ex-school teacher, I could go on and on and on, but unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. Maybe we can do this again next time. I so hope so.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow. All right. Thank you, Norman.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's been wonderful. Norman Lear has taken the Declaration of Independence on the road. He's brought the people's document back to the people. He is inspiring activism, education, and getting citizens to vote. I always tell parents to be what they want to see, and Norman Lear has done that. He is the modern statesman. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Gail Gross. See you next time.
Funding for this broadcast was provided by the law firm of Schlanger, Mills, Mayer, and Silver.